infuse your daily routines with habits that could bring in sensuousness. So one thing that I practice quite rigorously is a sort of a morning, I have a morning practice that I very rarely skip, which can vary from day to day, but the point of it is to always sort of ground me in my body. And some days I just like to do a kind of just stand in mountain pose, for those of you who are familiar with this yoga pose, where it's just about standing and feeling your feet being supported by your floor or by the ground. But it can be also some kind of, more extended ritual, stretching practice, dancing, painting, reading something, having some kind of scents and aromas that you want to use to start your day, or meditation, of course, which is also part of my morning routine. And speaking of meditation, it's something that I encourage, not only for the sort of, benefits of calming and grounding and all of the very many advantages of meditation that we know about, but also because it really is a kind of, it's an other way of knowledge, and it is perhaps the other side of the spectrum of rational knowledge, of rationalizing. When people are learning how to meditate, the typical advice is to follow the breath, or to picture, maybe a white light beaming within you, or any other kind of visualization of the chakras and things like that, all of which are I think, have been, at least for me, very, very useful. But another way of coming into meditation is quite simply to stop rational activity, so to stop rationalizing. That can be the key thing that prevents people from going into a meditative state, is that the brain is constantly trying to solve some puzzle or the other. It can be, as mundane a thing as like what to buy from the grocery store, or what email to send next, or it's trying to solve some huge dilemma that one has in life about a specific situation. But really it is, if one can just stop rationalizing, then you bring your mind into a certain kind of stillness. And it is accepted that meditative state is a state of knowledge. It is a state in which we gain so much self-knowledge, not only of the individual self, but also the collective self, the larger self of the world around us. And so it stands in some way in really stark contrast to Europatriarchal knowledge. And so if we are dissenting and resisting Europatriarchal knowledge, meditation is something that I believe is really important to incorporate into our lives in some way. And also, so also is being in nature, because that also provides a very different way of knowing to Europatriarchal knowledge and its emphasis on rationalization. And then reading. Reading is something that is disappearing more and more in contemporary society, because we are all so distracted by technology and busyness. And I can't encourage and emphasize more how integral to this kind of knowing that sensuous knowledge is. It is to read, and to read attentively with curiosity, and to really make time for reading in one's life. So even if you just can schedule a few minutes at the very least a day to read something, and poetry is great because like you can read it so fast. You can read one poem a day if that's all you have time for. But all of this said, because these are all things that to a great extent, and in notable ways, if you practice them, you make them a part of your routine, will beautify your life. It will calm you. It will, it will do all of the things that this kind of self-care, which it ultimately is, can enrich life with. But that isn't the point here, to sort of strictly bring in self-care or beauty into our lives. Again, similar to what I said about voice, this is part of a strategy to remain dedicated to the movements that sensuous knowledge is a part of, to the epistemic revolution, to feminism, to ecofeminism specifically, maybe even. And it's so easy to sort of see the beauty in these kinds of practices, just like it can be easy to see the politics in activism. But the point here really is to always be bringing these to interweave the aesthetic with the political, the things that feel good to us on a personal level, to try to see them as part of something larger. And this is the way in which Audre Lorde, who at least popularized, if not coined, this notion of self-care, was talking about. She didn't mean it in this kind of commodified and very individualistic way that it is increasingly becoming, but rather something that was part of a movement, of the Black Feminist movement. So with all of these kind of practices, you can think about a kind of a roadmap to sensuous knowledge in your personal lives. And then once you are sort of fusing these practices, these habits that are connected to the body, to spirit, to nature, and so on, with the more political aspects of sensuous knowledge and of the work that many of us do, then that same sensibility is one that can be applied to relationships, relationships with family, with lovers, with friends, with non-human beings. That same kind of sensibility where you bring your politics into your relationships. And that can be very challenging, but really enriching, because the point is that, as I said in a previous session, that it's more important to live a feminist life than to be able to theorize a feminist life. It is not, there's no end point to it. It's always a process. But the process is infused with this kind of intertwining of different practices and eye-opening rituals that help you to formulate your own way of practicing sensuous knowledge and feminism and epistemic revolution in all aspects of your life at the end of the day.